existence. They've had a few minor periods of interruption, but 3,000 years. And so, you know, the United States of America is not even 250 years old. And it's already on the decline. Absolutely. So you can imagine just 1,000 years of scholarly research, what your contribution to humanity would be. Now magnify that 3 times, and you got Kemet. That's why we focus our attention on the Nile Valley. That's why Kemet is so important to us. And we know, architecturally, from an astrological standpoint, from a sociological standpoint, Kemet was initially populated and inhabited by indigenous African people. Yes. Indigenous African people. So this idea of saying that Egypt, when I was living in Chicago, I remember writing a report on Egypt and consulting the World Book Encyclopedia. And in the World Book Encyclopedia, they stated that the Egyptians, now this is a world-renowned authority, they stated that the Egyptians were a race of dark-skinned Caucasians. That's how they were classified, dark-skinned Caucasians. So in essence, what we're dealing with is the history, the culture, the philosophy, the contributions of African people in the Nile Valley has been usurped by conquerors. And the story was turned upside down. And then others used fragments of this information in order to elevate themselves falsely to the highest level of humanity. And thus they propagate the lies about the ancient African world. And one of the significant aspects which relates to what I'm going to talk about this evening is that Kemet was the source of knowledge. Not just knowledge about the world, but knowledge about the universe. It had been cataloged and retained for thousands of years. Which was written about 1238 BCE. And within this document, we know first of all that the so-called Book of the Dead were notes for the afterlife. They were originally known as Pergam Heru, or the chapters for coming forth into day. The chapters are coming forth into a new life, a new consciousness. I prefer to view them as cliff notes for the soul, because they were put in the sarcophagi in order to help the spirit of the deceased negotiate the 12 gates of the underworld, so that he or she could say the specific passwords which would help them get from one level of the underworld into the next underworld, so they can come into the Hall of Ma'at, the Hall of Justice. And this scene is one of the most significant scenes that comes out of these documents that show the weighing of the soul. This is what the journey was all about, the weighing of the soul. And in this process of the weighing of the soul, we see the soul of the departed, Hunefer, is dressed in white. Because in indigenous culture, white is a color that represents death, the absence of life. Yes. Black is a color that represented the Creator, God. Here we see Impu, who's known to the Greeks as Anubis, leading that soul to the Hall of Ma'at. And here we have the most important symbol in this scene, the scale of Ma'at. We see an image of Ma'at here. The feminine head. Ma'at is feminine energy with the ostrich feather on her head. This is the scale of Ma'at. And on the right side of the balance, we see the feather of Ma'at, which again represents all of the principles and concepts associated with this African feminine nature, or principle or aspect of the divine. On the other side of the balance, we see a vessel which represents the heart of the deceased. Thus, the title of this piece, The Weighing of the Soul, because in ancient Kemet, the heart was viewed as the seat of the soul. So on the Day of Judgment, in 1238 BCE, Hunefer heart was weighed on the scale of Ma'at. And it was there where he had to recite the 42 admonitions of Ma'at. 42 admonitions of Ma'at. Some of those admonitions are, I have not stolen, I have not robbed, I have not committed adultery, I have not committed sin, I have not defrauded offerings. These 42 admonitions of Ma'at were distilled by Moses and presented to his people as the 10 Commandments. And what we don't know is that they left 32 behind. Okay? After Ma'at Hunefer declared his innocence as his heart was weighed on the scale of Ma'at. If his declaration was in fact true, if his words were true, then it meant that the scale would balance out because his heart would be as light as a feather. That's where the concept comes from. And this event was recorded in the Book of Life by Jehuti. Here's Jehuti again. And then Heru, the son of Asar, would then present the venerated Hunefer to his father Asar, who is seated on the throne of judgment. And then Asar would make a determination as to whether or not his soul would go to heaven or hell. So we're talking about African concepts of the soul, African concepts of the judgment of the soul, African concepts of the judge sitting on the throne of judgment, the 42 admonitions of Ma'at, in 13th century BCE.
Yes, yes.
1300 years before the birth of Jesus. And this is an old document which has been used in Kemet from the beginning of Kemetic time, at least 3000 BC. You see what folk have done with our knowledge?
Yeah.
See how they changed our knowledge, flipped it upside down, and presented it to the world as their own creation. So, this is a very important scene, very significant scene. And what we know is that we know about the books of the dead. Everybody talks about the book of the dead, the book of the dead, the book of the dead. There are thousands, tens of thousands of so-called books of the dead. What they don't talk about are the books of life. See, because it appears when you listen to the Discovery Channel or National Geographic, they tell you that the Egyptians had a preoccupation with death. That's why they built all these tombs, they built all these monuments. No. These Africans had a preoccupation with life. And they knew that life was eternal. They knew that life was cyclical.